Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. I have mostly returned to the realm of the living. My voice is back. My voice isn't quite up for one of the super long videos that I was going to do, so I thought I would do something else that was really fun. This is my Jund Dragon deck. This long-suffering love-hate relationship I've had with this deck. This is the second deck I ever made. Originally with Karthus, Tyrant of Jund as the commander. It's basically a pet project that I've loved and hated in equal measure over the years. It remained mostly the same for a long time until Adventures of the Forgotten Realms. I got on this treasure kick to try and optimize the deck, and I just turned it into something that it really wasn't even recognizable anymore. Didn't like it. Kind of threw it on the shelf. You guys have heard me mention it in other videos. I'll get to it. Eventually, over Christmas, I decided to just take a completely different direction with it. Took all the treasure out, and I decided to kind of rebuild it as a Jund ramp deck with the sole purpose of playing dragons. So this is new. It's in its infant stage and it's untested, and there are definitely some placeholder cards in here because the deck list hasn't been finalized yet. So I thought this would be a fun little rough cut episode for you guys. This is also show you, again, a very young deck in its existence. So commander is Lord Windgrace. Is there a better Jund commander overall? Honestly. He cares about lands. He's a great landfall commander. For those of you who love landfall, there's landfall in here, just not as much as you'd think. So for those of you who might not be familiar, his +2 is discard a card and then draw a card. If a land card is discarded this way, draw an additional card. The card advantage is huge in this deck. The card advantage was my deck's main weakness last time. I had a lot of stuff to do and an empty hand, so I couldn't play anything. So his -3 is return up to 2 lands from your graveyard to the battlefield. So you can get back a lot of utility lands, stuff like reusing Bajuka Bog or fetch lands, considering adding some fun stuff like Wasteland to this deck. It just wasn't the focus. Again, very early, so please be kind. I'm an unapologetic Dragon fanboy. I do what I want to do when I play Magic, and I want to just play dragons. That's what I like to do. So, people will probably say, oh man, you could do so many things with landfall. This is what I chose to do with it. So, I know a lot of people will say how suboptimal that is, but it's my style. So we're going to start. I love that art. So we got 13 mountains, and you're going to see why. The very last card in my land section, you're going to see why. 2 forests. I love that Tarkir thunder or firestorm art. And a swamp. I have one swamp in here. Maybe I should use my good Phyrexian swamp in this deck. Thoughts. So let's see the rest of the lands. Command Tower. Cavern of Souls, if you have it, if you have it, use it. I love this card. Unclaimed Territory, Cavern of Souls is a pretty functional little brother. I love this thing, actually. City of Brass, staple in multicolor decks. Haven of the Spirit Dragon, I'm going to be casting a lot of dragons or bouncing dragons from the graveyard. So that's going to be a thing. There's a lot of, not a lot, but there's a decent amount of recursion in this deck because there are just going to be times where I don't have the lands to discard to Lord Windgrace. I'm going to end up discarding stuff I don't want to discard, and so I have a couple ways of getting that back. Savage Lands. Man, there was a time when I thought this was amazing. Stomping Grounds, Shocklands. I don't have as many Shocklands as I want, but I'm going to get them. Cinderglade. Being able to search up stuff, having stuff count as mountains is really important to this deck. Rootbound Crag, there's going to be a lot of mountains, so there's a good chance it's basically a dual land. Firelit Thicket, filters, love them. Pain Lands if I need it. Spire Garden, I love this cycle of stuff. So Graven Cairns if I need more red fixing. Again, Dragon Skull Summit, there's enough mountains to justify this. Yeah, there's canyons also. Even though stuff that doesn't come into play untapped, it all counts. It all counts. Bloodstained Mire, my one and only fetch land. Undergrowth Stadium. So as you can see, there's a priority of red, green, and then a smattering of black, red, and black, green. So Undergrowth Stadium, Twilight Mire. Again, I just want to have my colors and Overgrown Tomb, another Shockland. This is what all of that is for. All the mountains matter stuff. This is just a great stalling mechanism for if my dragon deck somehow just hits a bit of a stopgap, just getting rid of stuff that's in the way. It's just one of my favorite cards ever printed, and it's just endlessly useful to just gum up the enemy's side, just pinging stuff or going for the face. And so it's a great way to stave off the storm. And then when my dragons really get going, it served its purpose. Bajuka Bog, you guys know why this is in here. You guys know I love this card. I'll run it whenever I run a black deck. On to the artifacts. Soul Ring. It's Soul Ring. Arcane Signet. It's Arcane Signet. Gruul and Rakdos Signet. So again, I tried to balance the mana as much as possible, but it's definitely red priority here. Ruby Medallion and Emerald Medallion. There's just not enough black to justify Jet Medallions, but these do take a bit of a hit from the more expensive dragons. Dragon Tempest. This is a card that may in fact rotate out because of a new card I added. But it does its job. It hits stuff, gives flyers haste. Sylvan Library. The card advantage is just way too important. I love this card. It's one of the most important cards in the whole deck. Rhythm of the Wild. The thing that basically is put Dragon Tempest's time in this deck on the clock. Just the added Cavern of Souls effect, plus the haste. Yeah, you could do the +1/+1. No. You're doing the haste. It's just an important aspect of this deck is getting it to work and then just not letting a blue deck just counter the heck out of it. This is probably going to get put in for a black card draw spell of some sorts, or maybe another trigger for card draw, but this definitely is overseeded Tempest's place in this deck in terms of function. Overlay terrain. So when it comes to play, sacrifice all lands, but every land can tap for 2 mana. Windgrace gets lands out of the discard pile, and it's not the only card that's going to do that in this deck. So this is a great setup to that. I love this card. I always wanted to use it. Now that I'm actually really going all in on Lord Windgrace, I have a reason to use it. And it's an original Nemesis copy, too. Cultivate. Oh yeah. So I guess we're on to the sorceries. Sorceries are going to be pretty basic and recognizable. Cultivate, ramp. This is a ramp deck. Damnable Pact. Just getting a lot of mana and being able to refill my hand is going to be amazing. Taking the life loss isn't that big of a deal. And for theme, I love the dragon art. Dreadbore. Cheap, efficient removal. Earthquake. This is kind of a holdover from the previous iteration of this deck. The previous iteration of this deck was filled with like Belby's Portal, Dragon Arch, let me think, what else? Elvish Piper, stuff that just plays dragons. This is much more based off creatures that let me ramp. So this Earthquake is way less useful than it used to be because I have a lot of non-flying creatures that I just didn't before. So I'm curious to see if this will still make the cut. This is still a late game monster when my dragons are in play and I torch the ground. But this one is so on that verge. Explosive Vegetation. Okay, so I actually really like this one. Another, just standard ramp card, Kodama's Reach. Like I said, you're familiar with a lot of this stuff for most green decks, you know what I mean? Oblivion Strike. Just because Wizards of the Coast has moved on from protection doesn't mean EDH has. And, if they ever unban Iona, this is going in every deck I own. Patriarch's Bidding. Once again, I kind of said this before with Overlaid Terrain. There's going to be a lot of stuff that hits the graveyard that I didn't necessarily want to. I'm just not always going to have a land in hand to discard to Lord Windgrace. And, having a bit of recursion like this, obviously the stuff I want out of my graveyard, dragons. Splendid Reclamation. Oh boy, this is going to be fun. I can't wait. Newer card. I cracked a ton of these in my box and can't wait to use this in combination with Overlaid Terrain. Have a ton of lands, sack them all, and then play 2 lands, and then just lay this down. Get them all back. I'm so excited to see how this deck works in practice. Tooth and Nail. You get all that mana. Do something fun with it. This is going to be so much fun. Actually, I have a sorcery that shouldn't be in this deck. But Tooth and Nail, just finding 2 bombs, getting them into play with the Entwine, or just casting 2 cards from my hand. It's just great value. Traverse the Outlands. Okay, so I like this, but I'm kind of worried by the time I play it, it won't actually have that much of an effect. If I've got, a 6-7 mana creature on the board, my dragons are probably functioning, and the deck might not need the ramp. Although, I could just pull out a ton of mountains and Valakut somebody to death, hopefully. But anyway, what I'm really trying to say is I can't find my copy of Ramanop Excavator. This should be Ramanop Excavator. This was a card I had handy, and I like it, and it's a decent replacement. But this should be Ramanop Excavator. Just the ability to play lands from my graveyard. I really wanted another card that did that. But this is a decent fetch that'll do something in the meantime. This is supposed to be Apex Devastator. This is not supposed to be here. This is supposed to be my Apex Devastator, which is that massive Cascade Hydra from Commander Legends. I have this amazing idea of tooth and nailing that, and then just casting a ton of dragons from the top of my deck. Which is actually going to be a little bit risky, because, again, I have so many creatures that are lower CMC now, so I actually don't know if it's going to end up working. Again, this is an experimental deck, so we'll see how that works. How much can you pack into a deck? All right, so on to instants, and there's not many. Abrupt Decay, cheap effective removal, Assassin's Trophy, my favorite Golgari removal in the game. Harrow, it gets a land into the graveyard for Lord Windgrace's ability, and it searches up 2 more lands. One of the earliest decks I played back in the day was Domain. And, I understood very well how good Harrow could be. Yes, I tried to play Draco. Hero's Downfall. Can't decide if a Hero's Demise or a Go for the Throat might just be a little better. Just for the cost of the card. Heroic Intervention. Nothing turns a big brain play into nothing when I giving all of my dragons hexproof and indestructible. One of my favorite instants in Magic. And Terminate, speaking of favorite instants in Magic. You guys know I love this card. So, on to the non-dragon creatures. So again, the idea is ramping out, getting extra lands in play. Means I have a lot of fragile bodies now, which I didn't have. So, dealing with that, trying to figure out how to adjust the tempo of the deck for that, because I don't want these cards, most of these creatures in combat. I don't want them interacting. I need them to get my game plan on the board. So, Birds of Paradise, classic mana rock card, Elvish Reclaimer. I really like this thing because it lets me search, and it gets lands into the graveyard for stuff, like the Excavator I'm going to use, like Windgrace. Splendid Reclamation. It's a lot. It's a lot of fun little thing, and it can come down as a 3/3 if I'm doing good. Burnished Heart. This used to have Solemn Simulacrum, but I just like Burnished Heart more. I just felt like I needed those land drops. This is a great early turn playable that can also be cannon fodder if I need it. Azusa Lost But Seeking, more lands, more ramping out. Dryad of the Elysian Grove. The idea that I can filter all sorts of stuff because I'm going to need red mana. It's like green mana early game, red mana late game. Rada, Heart of Keld. Being able to look at the top card of my library can really have a lot of advantage. And then, of course, her pump is not bad, but obviously it's because I want to play lands off the top of my deck. I want to be able to see what's coming. Speaking of seeing what's coming, Vizier the Menagerie. The fixing is nice. Looking at the top card is nice. Casting creature from the top is nice. Literally these are two halves of the same concept, except he doesn't bump. Balthor the Defiled. Again, Resurrection. I'm not so much worried about the green creatures, but all those big dragons are at least red. Mina and Den Wildborn. Another idea that instead of just sacrificing lands, also bouncing them for recasting. If I bounce a land in my hand, I can also discard it to Windgrace's ability. Morag Fury of Akum. You guys know my favorite landfall card of all time. I want to swing with dragons, man. That's simply what it is. I want to swing with those dragons. This gets going, and this will just take over combat. Sheoldred. I love her. She might be a little too slow for what I'm doing now, since she's not a dragon herself. But I can't bring myself not to run her. I love just plicking away at the enemy's board every turn, as well as constantly getting stuff back from the graveyard. And we're on to the dragons. Starting with one of my favorite dragon arts of all time, Thunderbreak Regent. I just kind of liked the idea of having a couple of lower curve dragons, and this one punishes people for targeting my dragons. So it was good all around. It's one of my favorites. Leyline Tyrant. Why is this still in the deck? I don't know. This was in the deck when I ran Braid of Fire. Before, like many people, I misunderstood Braid of Fire and realized how not that good it is, technically. Well, it's good, but I need to work for it more than I want to. So, yeah. It's still a decent 4/4 dragon for 4. And I can tap out, do something crazy with it, Nesting Dragon. This little landfall interaction is really fun. I love these little dragon eggs. This thing is just a nice gum up stopgap, and it creates dragons with those eggs when the dragon eggs die. You guys know this thing by now with me. Glorybringer, love it. I'm obsessed with it. One of my favorite dragons of all time. Right up there with Bajuka Bog and Terminate, one of my favorite cards of all time. Harbinger of the Hunt. This thing, I actually really love its pinging ability. This is about taking out really annoying, flyers or non-flyers. This is actually a card that I have used many times effectively in other circumstances, and I love it. Steel Hellkite. Powerful removal spell / dragon synergy, and one of the easily playables in this deck for a 3-color deck. Hellkite Charger, I'm going to get a lot of mana. So again, if I don't quite have Morag Fury of Akum online, I can still get my extra attack phases. Akum Hellkite. Literally, like Valakut's running mate. Lands matter, mountains matter, ping things, blast things. Laughless, Dragon Queen. Whenever I make non-token dragons, I get a dragon. And she's a 6/6 for 6, and she pumps all dragons. Hellkite Tyrant. People just love playing artifacts, so this is a nice way to A, punish that. B, it's a 6/5 trampler for 6, And I can just steal mana rocks and stuff like that, or treasure tokens. Inferno of Star Mounts. Mostly this is for its can't be countered and haste ability. But, you know, with this deck, I don't not see myself being able to do this at some point. So I'm really curious as to how this is going to go down. This could be a catastrophic failure, but I'm really curious to see how it goes. Savage Vent Maw, it attacks, I get mana. You know, this is one of those staple cards of this deck since its original version. Siege Dragon. So again, my board wipes are much more super glued to my dragons, and this is a good example as to how. You know, whenever it attacks, no defending player controls no walls, 2 damage to each creature without flying that player controls. So like, I'm huge on the spot removal and then using my dragons for board wipes. Hey, speaking of board wipe dragons, man, this is one of the most effective dragons of all time. Balefire, you know, deals that much damage to each creature that player controls. So that means if I actually pump it with like Lathliss, it does even more damage. I love this thing. Skyline Despot. Once again, just ways to conjure up dragons once they're on the field. And, you know, it's not the end of the world if this one particularly dies. You know, it's just a 5/5 flyer, so it's a card I like, but I'm not going to lose sleep if something happens to it. Autarka World Render. Whenever a dragon attacks, gains double strike. I love both Autarkas. This thing is just nasty. Other Autarka, Dragon Lord Autarka. 8/8 for 7 flying trample. That's all I need to say. The 5 is gravy, but it's really the fact that this is one of the biggest bodies I can possibly field. In fact, it is tied for the biggest body I can possibly field. Karthus, the former commander of this deck, but still a fighting force. The ability to untap all dragons and they all have haste. He's just... I still love this thing. I can't not love and play this thing. Another 7/7 for 7. Daragaz, also trample haste. Daragaz is just really annoying to get rid of. And I love that. The idea that people are just trying to put resources into getting rid of it. You know, wasting a good exile spell on a 7/7. You know, I like stuff that's really difficult for my opponents to deal with, and this is kind of difficult. This will make you use one of your precious exile spells on it. Bladewing the Risen, one of the greatest running mates in Dragon history. You know, he comes back, he brings a dragon back from the dead with him, and I am all for that. I am all for that. You know, this is just one of the... And also, he pumps all dragons, too. So, you know, insert all of those other interactions, you know, giving everybody double strike, destroying everything for damage, just, oof. Udvar Hellkite. I love this thing. So, you know, the 6/6 tokens are insane. Yes, there's a lot of things that interact specifically with non-token dragons, but when this thing when a dragon attacks, so that means that the little dragons here can make Udvar work. You know what I mean? Whenever a dragon attacks, not a non-token dragon, so this can get insane. Probably the best dragon ever printed, personally, in my opinion. And Hellkite Overlord. Again, 8/8 for 8, trample, haste, pump, and regenerate. This thing is scary when it does play. I have one game single-handedly with it. It might be a little overcosted for this deck, but until it has really not pulled its weight, it remains the top curve of this deck. The only problem is I think the best 8-mana card in this deck is Udvara, but still. So, this video lasted longer than I expected it to, but there you go, guys. That is my current passion project. This is my Lord Windgrace Ramp Dragon deck. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I was happy to actually get something out to you guys. Again, it would have been out hours ago, but I couldn't find a Ramanap excavator. Not that I'm annoyed. Yeah, like I tore through my collection. I like went through binders and deck boxes. Like what's a good Magic joke here? Like, obsessive search. Insert one of the art from like all of those blue cards with mad scholars looking for stuff. No. Commodore Guff. Quote Commodore Guff. Mercenary, Mercadia, Merfolk. You know what? I think I need a better filing system. I think that was Opt from Apocalypse. Was it Opt? I think so. But thank you guys for joining me. I'm going to have the more elaborate, detailed videos I was talking about. My voice just wasn't up for a longer video. So I'm glad I was able to get this out to you guys. Thank you for joining me. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys have fun. I'd love to hear what your crazier pet project decks are in the comments. I appreciate you guys wishing me well while I was recovering. I'm back, so you're going to get one of those videos next week. Oh, God, Neon Dynasty's around the corner, isn't it? Let me know in the comments. Is everybody psyched for that, or is everybody kind of like, meh? Well, thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you guys next week. Stay safe out there. I mean that, guys. Take care.